Hi everyone, my name is Christine Altos and I'm here to share a story with you that taught me a lesson, and it actually came from my garden, believe it or not. It was last fall 2013 that I noticed in my garden an intruder, and this intruder had poked its head through in the fall, and I had noticed it. Um, Amongst my phlox, my perennial phlox, was some goldenrod poking through. And I had noticed it only later in the fall when everything was blooming. But unfortunately, I didn't get to it. And when the winter came, I had completely forgot about it. So in the spring, when everything started blooming, it was not on my mind because I completely forgot about it being in there. And it wasn't until June, when everything was blooming quite nicely, and the phlox had grown to about, midway, mid half, well, what I thought was phlox, midway. And I had noticed that on the top of it, it had kind of wilted down, and there was some wet stuff on it, and it just looked ill, and it brought my attention to it, and I wondered why my phlox was looking so sick, and what could I do? I needed to help this so it wouldn't all die on me. So when I got over to the plant and I noticed it, then it actually it hit me. I'm like, oh, I remember last fall we had goldenrod in amongst this phlox, and I need to get it out, but I couldn't determine whether the ones that were wilted or the ones that were kind of stunted were the phlox or the goldenrod. So I have another garden that has the perennial phlox in it, and I knew that it wasn't infested with this goldenrod. So I thought to myself, the only way I'm going to be able to determine which plant is which is I'm going to have to compare them. And the reason I had to compare them is because they look so similar. I could hardly tell them apart. The leaves looked, there was like a slight difference to them. One was just slightly skinnier than the other, but they both had a long leaf on them, and they both had a long stem on them. So I took the piece that was wilted and I took it over to the phlox that I had in another garden, and I noticed they were different. I could tell the difference between them. Not much. I couldn't tell much, but I knew I could see the difference. So I knew, okay, I have the time right now. It's come to my attention. I really need to get this goldenrod out of this phlox before it's too late and there's just too much of it. So I get into my garden and I start pulling out I start pulling out the goldenrod, and a huge, I had this huge feeling that there is a lesson to be learned right now, because what I was noticing was something that we actually see in our lives as well. This goldenrod that looked so similar to a phlox had gone right to the heart of the plant. Okay, it had taken over the whole center of my phlox. I want you to visualize this. It grows in a big bush. If you know what a phlox is, it's just a long stem with leaves, and in the late summer, it grows beautiful white flowers on the top, and the fragrance that come off them are just beautiful. And they grow into a nice big bush. Well, this goldenrod had gone straight to the heart of this plant. Okay, it had taken out the whole center. The whole center was goldenrod. Okay, and then on the outside of this whole plant was goldenrod as well. As I started ripping it out, I realized I can't believe how this intruder, this plant that looks similar to what it should be, has taken over. It has disguised itself as a phlox. But luckily enough, I could recognize it by its fruit, because when it blooms, it is completely different. It's a beautiful yellow flower, but it's not what I wanted. the the golden phlox looks great along the roadside or along in all those fields, but it is not great in my garden. And it was completely taking over my phlox. And when I had seen it taking the heart out and it disguised all on the outside, if I had left it until it actually bloomed to know which was which, I would have lost my phlox. It would have just squeezed it right out. And I knew that I had to learn something from this and apply it to my life. Sometimes people come into our lives and, you know, they just seem like a good person, okay? They're happy, they have good intentions, so you think, and you trust them. You have no reason not to, other than that gut feeling you have inside, okay? When I started doing my garden, it brought me to a scripture, and it was about wolves in sheep clothing, and then how ferocious they are. We need to remember that. We need to put our guard up. We have to be more like dogs. When a dog senses something in someone, they know. You know it because they bark, they don't settle down, they just are so restless. And you're looking at them going, what is wrong? Like, I'm just talking to this person and they seem harmless. But the dog knows. The dog has that sense. And we have that sense too. We have that gut feeling. So we have to rely on that gut feeling. We may not understand what that feeling is, but if we tune into that and step back and ask ourselves, why am I feeling this way? Why is that person giving me an uneasy feeling? Okay? The best way to know and trust that gut feeling is time. Time will show you. Time will show you their fruit. Just like that plant, in time, I knew it by its bloom. In time, you will know people by their fruit. You have that feeling put inside you for a reason, and we need to tune into it. So this, I believe, I know that I was to learn from this so that I can tune into my gut feeling more too. So I thought it was a really cool lesson to be learned. A kind of a cool way that that I was taught it through my garden. So I thought I would share it with you. It's kind of a fun way to realize that we need to listen to that inner inside that's telling us there's just something different about that person. Is it a wolf in sheep's clothing? Perhaps, but you'll know them by their fruit. So just wait for that time and you'll know. And thankfully, I got that phlox out of my garden. I mean, sorry, that goldenrod out of my garden because my phlox grew quite beautiful this year. I really thought I was going to lose it, but I think I saved it in time. Well, I did save it in time because we were able to smell the beautiful fragrance that comes off that plant. So I hope this lesson, this little story, helps you in some way. And we'll talk to you again real soon. God bless.